I'm 82 years old now, and I've reached a point in life where I no longer bother trying to polish the truth before I say it. At this age, you don't have the energy for that. There's something heavy I've been noticing in myself and in the world around me, and I suppose I want to speak it out loud while I still can. It's this feeling I see everywhere. People losing interest in things they once cared about, drifting through their days like they're half awake. I've felt it too, in these later years, and I've come to believe it's a sign of something deeper than people want to admit. I don't mean the normal kind of tired, or the kind that comes after a long week. I'm talking about that quiet, creeping loss of desire for anything. The kind that slips in so slowly that you don't even realize you've stopped looking forward to things. It isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. But it's there. And it's usually a sign that something inside you has gone unattended for far too long. I'm not sharing this to teach anyone a lesson. At my age, I'm too old for lessons. I'm just trying to leave behind the truth I've gathered over the decades. That's really all a person can pass on. These days I spend a lot of time sitting in this old chair by the window. It's the only place where the light still feels gentle on my eyes. Some mornings I just sit here and watch the world without really seeing any of it. The trees sway, the cars pass by, the neighbors walk their dogs. Ordinary things. But I feel disconnected from them, like I'm watching a town I left years ago. I wasn't always like this. When I think back to my 20s, 30s, and even my 40s, I remember being full of expectations. Not ambition exactly, just the normal belief that life was moving somewhere. I worked in a small office then. Nothing remarkable, but enough to pay the bills. I woke up, drank my coffee, drove to work, sat in the same chair, typed the same reports, and came home. It was predictable, but I didn't mind. Routine felt like progress back then. I had hobbies too. I liked fixing old radios. I liked walking at night when the streets were quieter. I liked sitting with my wife in the evenings, talking about everything and nothing. We used to dream about traveling someday, even if it was just to places a few hours away. Simple dreams. Somewhere along the way, without noticing, I stopped doing many of those things. It didn't happen in one moment. It was small choices, the kind you don't think matter. I started staying later at work because there was always one more thing to finish. I skipped those evening walks because I felt too tired. I told my wife we'd take that trip when things calmed down. They never did. The strange thing is, I didn't feel unhappy. That's the trap. You don't have to feel miserable for your life to be slipping into emptiness. You can be perfectly functional, perfectly calm, perfectly reliable, while slowly disconnecting from everything that made you feel alive. I remember one evening, maybe I was in my early 50s, when my wife suggested we go down to the old boardwalk. We hadn't gone in years. I told her I just wanted to rest. I could see the disappointment on her face, though she tried to hide it. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I figured there would be other evenings. But looking back from where I sit now, that was one of the first cracks. Life almost never breaks suddenly. It erodes. Later, when my wife got sick, we spent more time in hospitals than at home. Even then, I don't think I understood how much of ourselves we had lost along the years. In the waiting rooms, she used to hold my hand the way she did when we were young. And I realized I hadn't reached for her hand like that in a very long time. I'd become someone who cared for her deeply but didn't show it much anymore. I'd become someone who was present but not truly there. After she passed, that was the moment everything shifted. Not because I felt devastated in some dramatic way. Grief doesn't always look like crying or collapsing. Sometimes it's just silence. A kind of quiet that sits in your chest and doesn't move. But what really changed me was waking up one morning and realizing I had nothing to look forward to. Not work, not hobbies, not even the small routines that used to give my days shape. Everything felt distant. I would stare at my old radio parts on the workbench, and nothing in me moved. I would try to read a book, but couldn't get through a page. Even food stopped having flavor. And here's the part one want to say clearly. Losing interest in everything is almost never about being tired of life. It's about losing connection to people, to purpose, to the small rituals that once anchored you. It's a sign that you've ignored yourself for too long, that you've been living on autopilot for years and didn't realize your spirit was thinning out. I've met younger people who tell me they don't enjoy anything anymore. They think something is wrong with them. But most of the time, what's wrong isn't inside them. It's around them. It's the way life has become constant noise without quiet moments. Always rushing, always working, always comparing, always distracting. No room for anything to breathe. I spent decades like that, doing what I thought I was supposed to do, thinking I was being responsible. But responsibility without presence turns into emptiness. And emptiness, if left alone long enough, turns into that feeling, like nothing matters and nothing excites you. There was a moment after my wife died, maybe a year afterward, when I found an old picture of us. We were sitting on the hood of my first car, eating sandwiches. We were laughing at something. I don't even remember what. But I remember the feeling of that day. We didn't do anything special. We just enjoyed being alive, being together. And when I looked at that photo, I realized how long it had been since life felt like that. Not joyful, not perfect, just present. That's when it hit me. I had waited too long. Too long to slow down. Too long to appreciate the small things. Too long to see my own life while I was living it. Some things cannot be repaired. Not because there's no solution, but because time doesn't run backward. You can fill your days with new things. You can meet new people. You can find some comfort as the years go on. But what's lost stays lost. I say this without bitterness. Just truth. At 82, I've made some kind of peace with it. But peace isn't the same as satisfaction. Peace just means you've stopped fighting with the past. There are days I sit here and think about all the evenings I rushed through, all the conversations I postponed, all the weekends I treated like a burden instead of a gift. I didn't know I was drifting away from myself. I didn't know losing interest in things was a warning sign, not a personality change. When you live long enough, you start to understand that the things you ignored were the things that kept you human. The small joys, the ordinary rituals, the people who wanted your attention more than your efficiency. I sometimes think about how many people right now are walking around feeling detached and tired and uninterested, thinking it's just how life is, thinking it's normal. And I worry for them, not because they're weak, but because they're human. And humans aren't meant to live numbly. I'm not here to give advice, but I'll tell you what I wish I'd known. If you start losing interest in everything, it's not laziness. It's not failure. It's a sign that something inside you is asking for your attention, gently at first and louder as the years pass. And if you don't listen, life will move on without you. Take that from someone who spent too much of his life half present. I still do small things now. I water the plants, even though I forget sometimes. I listen to the birds in the morning. I make tea the way my wife used to. I don't suddenly feel young or energized or purposeful. But these small things keep me from disappearing completely. They remind me that I'm still here, even if the world has grown quieter around me. And I suppose that's why I'm talking into this microphone today. Not to warn anyone, not to teach, but to speak out loud before I go. To leave something behind that feels honest. If this meant something to you, even a small part of it, I'm glad. Not for my sake, but because it means you're still paying attention to your own life. I don't know how much time I have left. Most people my age don't. But I've stopped worrying about that. What matters now is that I'm awake enough to notice the light coming through the window, the little creaks of this old house, the memories that rise and fall like quiet waves. There's no grand ending to this. Just an old man sharing what he's learned too late. I hope you find your way back to whatever you've been losing interest in. And if you can't, I hope you at least notice the moment it starts to slip. That awareness alone might save you from becoming like me. Someone who woke up one day and realized the world had gone dim long before the lights actually went out.